Hey guys, and welcome to yet another tone guide video. If you're a beginner worship guitarist, this is going to be an essential video for you. And even if you already have some kind of a pedal board together, I'm sure you'll be able to pick up a bunch of tips in this video because we're going to look at the wonderful volume pedal. Now, I can't imagine playing a gig, whether it's a worship related gig or an actual, just a normal gig outside of the church. I can't imagine doing a gig without a volume pedal. There's so many benefits that you get when you use a volume pedal, and in this video I'd like to demonstrate some of that to you. I'd like to tell you some of the reasons that I like to use a volume pedal, and I'd also like to give you a couple of tips when it comes to investing in your own volume pedal. So for the most part, I use my volume pedal for swells, and it could either be chordal swells, so I could play a chord and as you can see, as soon as I play the chord, my volume pedal's all the way down. We call that heel down. And then I go to the toe down position, and then it just fades my volume in. Now, of course, you can do this with a volume pedal, with your volume control like this. Volume control down, play the chord. And then you can swell that in. But that's not very useful if you have to use your pinky for the volume swells. Now, sometimes with some lead guitar stuff, that's totally fine because you're playing some single notes, right? But the volume pedal really gives you, it frees up that finger, so you don't have to do the volume swells with your pinky on your volume control. And also some guitars might not have a very smooth volume part, or it might not be quite within reach if you want to do those kind of volume swells. So that's the first reason I like to use it. Swelling in chords, and I also love using this for lead guitar lines. So I could play a note like this, single note stuff, and then swell that in. So that's one of my favorites to do as well. So those are the two main reasons that I would use a volume pedal as I'm playing, either to swell in chords or to swell in single note lines. Now, we're going to get to both of those, and I'll give you a couple of tips as it relates to the kind of sound you need to have dialed in. But now you know my main preference for a volume pedal. Some additional bonuses that you have if you've got a volume pedal is you can just step on your volume pedal, and then obviously your signal's dead, and then you can tune. And that's especially useful if you have a tuner on your pedal board that might not automatically cut the signal as soon as you engage the actual tuner. And also, if I know that, I shouldn't be playing at this stage, or whatever the case may be, I can just, control my volume super easy, just, by putting the pedal in the heel down position. Now, very importantly, when you are using a volume pedal, you need to pay close attention to where you place that in the chain. Now, right now, I'm using a Kemper over here, and I'll put in the kind of amp model that I'm using at the moment. And what I've done is I've actually put the volume pedal so that it happens before my wet effects and after my dry effects. So what does that mean? Well, quite simply, if I put my volume pedal in the beginning of my signal chain, meaning I've got volume, then I've got my drives, and then I've got my wet effects. If I do that, it's just not going to sound good because my volume, because it's pre-effects, it means that if I have my drive pedal engaged, for example, and my volume pedal's all the way down, and I just go up a little bit, then I'm not going to get a full drive happening through my pedal, because it's the same way as I am just, putting a little bit of volume into the drive pedal as opposed to full volume. So what does that mean? Simply put, in that stage, or in that case, I'm actually controlling what's known as the gain stage. So either I'm not getting the full gain into my pedal, and therefore I'm not getting the full gain out of the drive pedal. So it's the same way that you would have if you play around with your volume pedal, with your volume control on its own. Let me do that for you right now. So here is a sound with a fair bit of drive. But now if I turn my volume control down a little bit and then I play, now it's a little bit cleaner. You see what happened there was I controlled the stage of my gain. At first it was only a little bit of gain, and then as I turned up my volume control, I had a lot of gain. So you don't want to do that when you use a volume pedal in the way that I'm showing you today, because we want the full gain experience, whether I'm playing it softly like this or at full volume. So basically, when I place my volume pedal after my drives, I'm literally only controlling the volume and not the gain of the pedal. So if you've ever used your pedal pre-gain on your pedal board, you can see on the screen right now, then you are going to be controlling the amount of gain that you can get through the pedal. But if it's post-gain, then you're simply controlling the volume, which is where you want to have it. So next up, when you use your volume pedal, make sure it's placed before your wet effects. Now, what does that mean? Well, if it's before my wet effects, then I can play a note, I can swell into it and then swell out, but because it's before the wet effects, I will still hear the signal ring like this. So the volume pedal is out now, but you can still hear the delay trails. And that is a lovely thing that you want when you are playing with a volume pedal, doing these ambient style chords, which is very useful in a church setting. So what happens there is I'm cutting out my signal, but because the volume pedal is before my wet effects, when I cut the signal out, the wet effects, the trails still keep ringing. So it's very much the same as you would have when you play piano or keyboards with a sustain pedal. So you can play a chord, step in the sustain, and then you lift your hands off the chord, but the chord will actually keep ringing. And that is a similar effect that I get with my volume pedal. So there you go. Those are some tips for your signal chain. Make sure that your volume pedal is not in the beginning of your chain, but after your dry effects and before your wet effects. And that way you can get these kind of sounds. And that is really very, very important if you're looking for that type of thing, where as soon as you stop playing, the trails keep going. Now, secondly, when you choose a volume pedal, make sure that you get a good quality volume pedal. There are some famous brands out there that are unfortunately notorious for sucking a lot of your tone in terms of the signal, right? We've actually tested that before with different preamps and different volume pedals, and then when you actually use a volume pedal that is not a good quality volume pedal within the chain, it can actually degrade your signal just because whatever is going into the volume pedal and coming out the other side, it degrades that. So make sure that when you practice or that you try volume pedals, get a volume pedal that doesn't degrade your signal. Now, of course, in my instance here, using a digital setup like the Kemper, I'm not going to have that problem because it's simply acting as an expression pedal and not affecting the actual signal. But if you're using a standard pedal board, make sure that you choose the right kind of delay pedal. Other things that you might want to consider is the weight and the size. So right now you can see I've got a Misson EP1K pedal right there, and that one, it weighs a lot more than this Dunlop Volume X Mini, all right? So it's going to weigh a lot more. So if you're flying around for gigs, or if you have to lug a bunch of gear around all the time, this EP1K or EP1KP, I think, that's going to weigh a lot more than this little Dunlop. And also, as you can see, I've got a Metro 24 pedal train board here on which I stack my Kemper remote. So this little volume pedal fits very snugly on there. And, whereas this big one is going to go over the ends if I use that on this pedal. So that's another thing in terms of the size. And the final thing that you definitely want to check out is the smoothness of the, the actual pedal. Some pedals will be offering you a little bit more resistance as you play with the heel down, toe down positions, whereas other ones will be a bit more smoother. So there's a couple of tips for when it comes to using a volume pedal, the kind of things that you can do with the volume pedal, where you should place it in your signal chain, and what you should consider when adding a volume pedal to your pedal board. All right, really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me play you out with some chords and lead lines so you can hear the kind of tones that you can sculpt when you are using a volume pedal in your setup. All right, there you go. Some fun with a volume pedal. If you have the right reverbs and delays set up, then you can get some lovely ambience going like this. It's always a hit, in a praise and worship service, especially when done at the right time. And for me, it really just takes the tone of the guitar to a whole new level. It's more orchestral for me. It's more cinematic. It's more, I don't know, it's just an amazing sound. And I find that when you learn how to use that in the praise and worship setting at the right time and the right place, you can be a massive, you can make a massive contribution and impact on the overall sound. And that, guys, is why we, kind of focus a lot on our tone, making sure we want to be able to generate the right kind of tone, be able to play the right kind of chords, and really just understand that praise and worship music as a genre is very different from, say, a blues rock trio or whatever the case may be, because we've got a bigger team that we're playing in. And therefore, I want to commend you that you're watching videos like this on YouTube and on our website in order to improve your playing as a guitarist. And if you'd like to learn some of these chord voicings that I'm using, some of those lead lines, all those kind of stuff, well, we've got a 7-day free worship guitar challenge, which you can sign up for. The link will be in the description box below. You get tabs with that, backing tracks, a bunch of different guitar parts, and I break them down. And you also get access to my email in case you want to ask me any questions. I'd love to help you out wherever I can. All right, guys, that's it for this one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.